Welcome to my first ever Sunday afternoon spirituality, mythology, and religion talks. I've always had a bit of a critique towards the church, and I believe that for me to be critical towards something, I best be constructive about that. Which means if you are going to talk about the change, then you should try to be the change, right? So how would I hold space for a person in a religious um, communion? Well, I definitely have been very allergic to dogma, right? And I think that dogma is a thing we should look at as quite pathological. A lot of people will take dogma and say the whole thing, the whole word is an evil. It's caused the evil of the world, right? And I have felt that way for most of my life. I know that there is things that are dogmatic, say structures that allow people to that are important, and like dogmas, for example, around morality. I think that we can be more dogmatic around morality because morality is something that there is some objectivity to, you know, and to be honest, people don't. These are those kind of things. If I realize now is it's it's the pedagogical dogma. It's like the dogma that doesn't have any justification that I'm allergic to, and a lot of people be like, well, maybe we shouldn't use the word dogma and maybe we should use doctrine. And fair enough, but at the same time, you can teach somebody to play reggae music. You can give them the doctrines of reggae music, right, and the teachings, and it's not authoritarian at all. It's just the teachings. However, if I'm going to be in a band with a reggae artist, then there is a certain amount of authoritarianism in a sense to the for us to live together. So, and that comes down to morality, and a lot of people don't. So yeah, there is a places I believe for dogma, and I'm happy for people to talk me out of that idea, But I think that it's safer for us to use the word generally. Probably is doctrine, and doctrine again is indoctrination, and you can be. I don't think we should be taking a teachings and being absolute about it and ideological about it, and then it becomes pathological dogma. But really, a reason why there's dogma that's important too is that it's almost it's a proposed truth, right? It's what it is encouraging people to believe, so then they can know. So I mean, there's the reason why people are against dogmas because there's like experiential and then there's sensory perception, right? And anything that's out, like that's why spiritual dogma is uh, is sometimes necessary to prime the pump, and it's having something to believe in, and sometimes it is to for us to be able to discuss a certain religious or spiritual topic. Then we need some kind of, let's say, structures to keep us in the same world, So what I believe that we do need to, like, let's say, discuss these I'd say doctrines is a better way. It's to teach. However, I'm still going to be like, if I'm going to play in a reggae band, I want the keyboard player to know that bubble, right? And there's times it is necessary, and it sounds very dogmatic, right? There's times when there is morality that's necessary, right? So past um you know that's what I believe is spirituality should be what we make it, you know? So I think that, it's a good thing there's a lot of dogmas that are in the church, and that, I know I've heard of people even saying how evil it is to light sage, you know, and I've heard Catholic churches talk about the evilness of sage. So these are those silly things, right? And it's like when people start following these things, they can become kind of taught again. They believe that all of these things that we worship through or have a spiritual connection to, or let's say the materialization of spirit as an idol, like we're idealizing like a stones, like I have to have stones and things like that, and be like to praise those instead of God. Well, it's not praising those instead of God as God, right? So that's why people have to be, and that's where I also believe that I have gone over this in other videos, is the idols, I believe, are the ones that we build these stadiums for. We all these people that we put up and we're kiss their ring like the Pope. That's the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is just twisting words, right? Okay, so I guess I'll put my criticism to the side and let's just let's praise together, right? I'll invite you at home to light up your incense. There's all sorts of different kinds of incense. This is Blue Lotus. If you light it, it smells beautiful, but there also is a psychoactive effect to Blue Lotus, right? So people are like, oh no, it's like there's another dogmatic thing of that these are not to be messed with. Same with cannabosum, right? In ancient traditions, we used to use this as an incense also, right? So it's also what the difference between an entheogen, with an entheogen is like a plant or a plant medicine that kind of shows you the God within, opens the third eye. That's what an entheogen is. So really there's the difference between a drug and the entheogen is intent, right? So people will be like, oh, you don't want to be, intoxicated and go to church or something like that, right? There's another an ideology. And it's like, well, that's not, if I was going to church to avoid a connection to spirit, then fine. Like that's I'm using it because Blue Lotus, the effects are calming, right? So if I'm constantly using the Blue Lotus to escape, then my intention is using it as a drug rather than an entheogen. But if I'm using it as a thing where I'm intentional and I take that time to learn about my spirit and speak about philosophy with people I'm around and use that as as something to help with the reception from the Lord, then this is when people should light up the incense, and if they want to breathe it into their lungs and use it as a tool to increase the power of their meditation, then this is where we have to be less ideological, right? I'm gonna light up a little incense, and I think it's important. Then maybe we'll have like a little bit of music where we can meditate, but let's go from there. Invite everyone just to close their eyes. Imagine the clouds slowly floating through the air. Try to escape any other thought but those clouds. Sometimes just looking at the texture of the clouds can help rein in those other thoughts trying to take control of your mind. In that silence, you may get a feeling. If you stay with that feeling, you can bring it out of the unconscious and realize it is the teachings. You'll notice many people that are praising God, they put their arms like this. There's a shape. There's like a reception, right? And then when people pray, they come together like this. See the shape again. It's a transmission. I always thought, I was like, what's the difference between prayer and meditation? Well, once you're in a meditation, you can be receptive and transmissive. So I believe that prayer is under meditation. However, there's a way to look at it too, that when we're meditating, we're in reception. So that we are taking in, we're bringing silence, because you need silence for us to hear the words, right? I'll stop speaking now, and it'll be your turn to speak. In that silence, you're waiting for a transmission, right? So a lot of people can be like this, like waiting in silence for that transmission, right? And that's if you look at the Star of David, right? That's that pyramid, transmission, and this pyramid put together, reception, right? The male and the female, right? So there's the balance, finding the balance between the male and the female, the when to give and when to receive, when are we being, our unconditional love is actually harming someone. Or when we're protecting when we don't need to. There's many religions that have had different beliefs around the Trinity, and the great thing about great ideas is there's many different ways of interpreting them. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost is the New King James version, in the Bible, and I do see like there is a heavier emphasis on the Father in Christianity and through the Bible. There's judgment, there's stories of the past and of the future. It's the left brain. It's there is, and even in the wording, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, like there's plenty of thing. The fact that there's a lot of, let's say, patriarchal spirit in this, and let's say that in a lot of paganism that doesn't read in the Bible, and I'll actually throw this out, is probably an overemphasis on the feminine, of no judgment, right? And but no judgment can lead to bad places also. So there's too much judgment and there's not enough judgment, right? And that's finding that balance again between the masculine and the feminine, right? We don't want to be passive completely, because we'd be taken advantage of. That's the feminine. But we don't want to be aggressive all the time, because that's going to be a problem. That's the masculine. But the assertion is finding that center, right? So that's why I looked like it came, like the Sumerians were the first Trinity, and that passed on to like the Babylonians, and the pharaohs of Egypt have their own Trinity, and Hinduism has their own Trinity, and I know that there is a importance of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right? Like the Father, which is God, right? But I rather say the Father and the Mother as one, because then that's why there's a reason that I believe it's important to bring in the feminine into the Trinity. I'll explain that first, but we'll just why I know there's a reasons why we keep it for certain interpretations, why we just keep it one gender, and it just makes it easier to translate. And that's more that the God, which is the Father, is manifested in this world, in this physical world, as the Son, right? And that can actually do the things of God, which makes the teaching. So you have to there has to be a physical manifestation of God that brings us back to the connection with God, right? So it's like it's a circle of if you don't manifest what Jesus would do, or try to manifest or be a physical manifestation of what God is, then you don't return back, right? In a sense, you don't get the strength of that unity. However, I also look at the fact that one of the most important things about spiritualities is the balance of your masculine and the feminine, and what you want to do is pass that on to your child. And I talk about it in one of my Trinity videos, where I talk about you can find your own Trinity that's connecting your center, your brain, with your left and your right. It's like the discerning which voice to listen to, right? And that's like a trinity of your own. But then when you gain that, you share that with your partner, and you come to an agreement on the balance of the masculine and the feminine. And then you pass that on to your child. So what the manifestation of the child is, you want that child to be a Jesus, right? You want him to be the perfect manifestation of the masculine and the feminine for every situation that he's put in front of him. And that's where he's out receiving. See, like, his arms are open, receptor, and look at them praying. They're asking for this to be that, but they're not just praying for it. They're teaching him in his morals. They're teaching him when he's being toxically feminine and toxically masculine, or benevolently feminine and benevolently masculine, right? And that's why this is why I suggest people can look at it from both ways. I understand why we do, but the thing that was really important to me, and what really connected me to my spirit, was connecting to the feminine in me. And actually, one of the greatest people that I'd say ever lived, but in especially in my time, is Eke Becca, von Benjamin, and this Polarity album is his last album, and he talks about the unity of the polarities and coming to your center, right? And that is like the mother is the hero's journey of the mother, right? Is harnessing and bringing life, and the hero's journey of the masculine is harnessing that fire and that demon to protect, so that the woman can continue to bring life, right? So this is why I believe the Trinity is. It's important for us to think of the Trinity as the father, mother, child, but it also fractals out the ability to not have any. It's not about the sex at all. So if you're looking at that interpretation, it's more about the manifestation of spirit, right? So I think about the Blue Lotus is that representation of the feminine, the divine feminine, right? Maybe apples and oranges, but I also believe that the masculine is the extreme of a masculine is flesh, and the feminine is the spirit. So that's why I'll use the idea of the flower against the knife. So the knife is the masculine, It's all the way to the far sides of things, where this is to stand up against something. But it is harnessing the power of a knife. And that's not knowing how to wield it, which that is part of it too, but is understanding when and only when that knife ever needs to be unsheathed, right? So that's what martial arts is. We have to understand, like, the martial arts is harnessing and learning the discipline, knowing how dangerous you are as a man, and taking that dragon, right? That dragon's got to look at the heart. He's on a chain, okay? So that's knowing, if you don't know how dangerous you can be, then that dragon is likely not on its chain. So like that's what, to me, like when you teach a child about a knife and you give them their first knife, it's teaching them about discipline, right? And also the biggest spiritual battle that is ever that a man has had to face. People have had to stand and said, there's a satanic force coming to pass this line to get to my family, community, whatever behind me that I need to protect. And that's an emphasis on the ability to do that so you don't have to, right? You have the knife, it's sharp, you know how to wield it, you know your martial arts, but because you have that, you have the ability to look somebody in the eye and they know that you have that. And the I think it's called the Kirpa in the Sikh. You know that the reason that's a spiritual connection to standing up against the unjust and tyrannical forces of the world. That's what it is. That's a symbolism, right? So this isn't, when I think about that, and I think about how a man should always have a knife on him. First of all, for utility, that's part of what a man is you know how to use your tools. Then you're also manifesting that creation of the Lord, right? Because Jesus was a carpenter, Jesus was a fisherman. He was out using these tools to bring in the food for the world, right? And that's the manifestation of a knife is that, how we can take the spirit of a man and utilize it and be conscientious, be all of those things, but and be proud of the fact that you build businesses and build things and create and all those things, but also have a spiritual side to you that's not going to allow that ability to be corrupted, right? And that's, again, that discipline, So I think people should know martial arts. I think people should know how to do psychological martial arts, which is the ability to Archangel Michael, which cut through demonic ideologies, right? Because that allows the world. And if you have the ability to do so and look somebody in the eye, you may have to stand up against, because sometimes when you come to the in evolutionary background of humans, when there wasn't the ability, you going to jail if you beat up somebody smaller, when all these mitigation factors from a smaller man being able to be dominant rather than just the big brute being dominant, those mitigation things have allowed for a different world, same with guns and all the ability. However, the utilization or the ability to look somebody in the eye when you're speaking to them and killing an ideology in them, you may literally trigger something in them that allows that it will attack you, and that looking in the eye. So you almost have to stand with confidence to that. So that's why there's people are like, oh, guns and knives, and like they don't understand the Sikh religion around why they have a knife. Like, spirituality is supposed to be peaceful. Well, there's an idea of the divine masculine. Got a Bible quote. This is Ezekiel 3:33, magic number. We're actually going to start at Ezekiel 3:33, line 31 to 33. And they come unto thee as the people cometh, and they sit before thee as my people, and they hear my words, but they will not do them. For with their mouths they shew much love, but their hearts goeth after their covetousness. And lo, thou art unto them as a very lovely song of one that hath a pleasure voice and can play well on the instrument. For they hear thy words, but they do not do them. Sorry, they do them not. And when they cometh to pass, lo, it will come. Then shall they know that the prophet has been among them. You know, there's a lot of people. This is why it's really hard sometimes to even know who is really spiritual, or if they're just using it as a way to um, show themselves as spiritual. There is like and also to demand respect, or to for power or money. You know, all these things. There's a lot of people that speak of all the virtues of spirituality, especially the peaceful ones, because they don't want to speak about the they don't want to speak about the moral parts of it too much, but the peace parts of it, right? Because once people start to call people out on their morality, they're not going to be able to be loved by the big group, right? Because and that's, I guess, a big problem with a lot of churches is as um, the congregation got smaller, they had to become to stay like it's a monetary. They're paying for a building to be heated. They are paying a priest. Like there's a monetary thing for them to continue running their business as a spiritual practice. They had to stop speaking on certain moralities. We had to demoralize the church to keep it full, right? So we have to be very careful with any churches that are doing that. Is like there is a certain line. There is dogmatic morality that the church stands for, and if for us to throw those completely out the window is an issue to me, right? So a lot of people will move the worm when off the sidewalk when somebody's watching, and but never move the worm if no one was watching, right? A true Buddhist, one that's actually feels for the worm. So it's not about the to signaling of the virtue of moving the worm. It's truly about the worm, right? So I think that in these times, if you are a passive, peaceful person, it's a tongue twister. In these times, then you may not be as spiritual as you think, right? We need to push on the spirit. We need to push on the bad spirits, let's say, right? Because we can be spiritual but immoral, right? Because there's bad spirit too, right? What spirit is in you, right? What words do you stand beside, right? You'll see there's two people. There's a vision for you. There's two people meditating on the beach. One may think that the person that has their eyes shut the longest must be the most spiritually evolved. But it's not time and space time. Like the things that we appreciate here have little to nothing to do with the messages that are brought in. It's a feeling, it's a moment. That's why this is a touchy thing. You have two people with their eyes shut on the beach. One opens his eyes in 5 minutes, the other's in there for 10 and 12 minutes, and he's in there, he's staying there to keep his eyes shut and completely silenced. But did he receive any teachings? Did he receive any peace from that, or is he acting that out for the people that are seeing him meditate? Because remember, we're watching them, right? So that's just a little idea, is like it's easy to act as if you're spiritual, you know. It's easy, or let's say, act as if that you are the manifestation of God. You know what I mean? But to actually like be it in those situational bases, like actually be Jesus. What would Jesus do right then? You know? And he's not the guy that's just the nice guy that never says any confrontational things. He ended up the story of Jesus, he ended up on the cross. He pissed people off, right? He was questioning their morality. If you are a spiritual person right now and you see what people are doing to each other, you would stand up. And that's why I encourage people, and to stand up instead, And if I were to run a church, then they would fire me and get another priest, because they would realize that I'm trying to empower people not to need to come to church. First of all, that's the other thing is, but second of all is so that I would be people don't like to be told that they're not being a good Christian, right? Because there's a lot of plastic spiritual people, a lot of plastic religious people, you know. I found my spirit, or the good voice in me, and then I found interest in mythology and religion, and then I found how important the teachings of these ancient books are. Let's do a little prayer together. I encourage people to make up their own prayers, There is reasons why we can use like prayers that we all know, that are simple but mean something. One of my favorite ones is this one, so we can do it together if you wish. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's a really simple prayer. It should mean to you whatever you feel it should mean, However, it is easy to tell yourself that you can't change things, and for us to turn away from the hero's journey, right? But give me the courage. All of you, I pray that you all have the courage to stand up to those pathologies as they arise in your community. I think a really nice way, because myself, I kind of pray and meditate before I head to town. Like, it's part of, I burn sage. I have some crystals that I lay out. There's this little ceremony I do, right? It takes a little time, but in that ceremony, like, it seems like I'm setting some kind of structure for myself. But that's what it is you create these ceremonies. They become something special, right? It's about making life blessed, right? It's about, praying to your meals, thanking the animal that gave you the gift of that, and God that made that animal. There's something about how special that is, and we live in a time where all is mind. So I encourage people to to just remember that. Just a quick little pause to plug this thing in. Just finish up with a little bit of music and a quick prayer. I hope that you've all enjoyed this Sunday post-worship, continue worship, whatever we want to call it. Here we go. God, please grant me the ability to control my emotions in the hardest times. Allow me the strength to rely on you and you alone, so that I may ascend out of my old ways into the ways of the warrior, the spiritual warrior. Keep the fear out of my life. Keep the fear out of the people's lives right now. They're struggling, and I pray to you, Lord, please have them open their eyes and awaken to the deception that they're under. Please allow them to open their eyes, and when they open their eyes, that they don't fall into fear, and instead they fall into the power that it is to have you in their lives. you are that can kill the nihilism that is plaguing the world. Thank you and amen. Much love and God bless you all.